Hello, everyone. So, earlier this morning, I was able to watch the first episode of Paramount Plus's new Halo TV series. I went to work, sat on it, thought about it for, about 12 hours now. So, I think I finally have my thoughts compelled enough to talk about what I thought about this first episode of this, what's going to be a 9 episode series. This first episode comes in just a little under an hour. I think like 55 minutes ish is around the range of this. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to get into my review for this. It is going to be chock full of spoilers because I just feel like I can't explain my full feelings about this episode and where I think it's going to take the series without diving into some of the spoiler stuff. So you have been warned. Save this video, watch it, come back to it if you don't want any spoilers right now before you watch the episode because yeah, I'm going to get into them. So but we'll just without further ado, let's get into it. So I wasn't certain at all what the timeline was going to be of the show until, of course, I watched this first episode. But this takes place after Harvest, so after first contact with the Spartans, meeting the Covenants, really. And it takes place before the fall of Reach. So it's still early on in the days of Master Chief's career and, of course, humanity's war with the Covenant. A lot of the focus of the show is about the civilians in the world and we get to see a lot of them, well, just not knowing about the covenants. If any of them have heard about it, they think that is UNSC propaganda for them to want the protection of the UNSC. But there's a lot of distrust with humanity, the civilians, and the UNSC. They see them as basically space colonizers who go and strip resources for their interstellar travel and just basically do not see them as humanity's hope, which of course they transfer into, but they just see them as a big intergalactic military. And the planet that we focus on in this is very, very against the UNSC. They hate Spartans, they hate the UNSC, they hate Halsey, they hate everything basically that the UNSC represents, and they've been fighting against them for a long, long time. All they want is their independence. But they realize that they may need a little bit of their help when they are attacked by the Covenant. And we just get to see elites in this episode. And yeah, it's definitely makes for a very, very, very gory first episode. But before getting into a bit of the story and what I think about where it went, I want to talk about some of the smaller elements of this. And one of those is going to be the music. So I like the music when it's doing what the games did. I found that there was these really annoying sci-fi sounds that lots of this episode kind of put into the action sequences and things like that that just wasn't sitting well with me, and it just felt more like a generic sci-fi soundtrack than it did a Halo soundtrack. I just didn't find the two meshed well together. So originally what they've done here, I just don't find fits well to like the scope, scale, and just epicness of Halo. It doesn't really live up to what's been done beforehand. But of course, when they're playing the original Halo stuff, it works well with what they have in live action. So I'll give them that. The opening credits crawl of this is actually absolutely beautiful, and it is very, very, very well done and fun to watch. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Westworld does with their intro in terms of the visuals, but just you have that creating the armor for Master Chief, and I just think it's beautifully animated. It looks really cool. It's epic. The music that they have playing during that is really, really cool and fun to watch. And yeah, it's a very, very good intro. Okay, when it comes to the action of this series, some of it's great, some of it not so much. The some of it that I just referred to mostly has to do with the first person scenes that they shot in this. So basically, they shoot it in first person as if you're playing as Master Chief, and I just found that like the CGI was so wonky whenever they did it. I feel like the games did a better job of Master Chief actually feeling big, where I found the assault rifle he was holding felt small in his hands. It just felt wonky, and yeah, just the way they animated it and the helmet just didn't seem polished or finished enough, and it was very, very wonky. But when it comes to the elites, and also too, we get to see High Charity, a bit of space, the Prophets. I found that they all look good. I don't want to say great, but they're very passable. It honestly, for a TV series, the CGI in this is pretty damn solid. I find the movements are pretty good for the most parts. Of course, like it doesn't look perfect, which I think a lot of people were expecting it to, almost like movie like quality. It's definitely not amazing if you're taking CGI as a whole, but for a TV series, I honestly think it looks pretty it works well enough for what it truly has to do to make the elites feel alive, which they do. And yeah, the Covenant is scary, and I was surprised at first and a little taken back by it, but in all honesty, I'm kind of fine with how grotesque and gruesome the show is. It's just, of course, when they made the Halo games, there was no technology to have dismemberments or just terrible, gory things like that. So it's never been in the Halo games, and I've just kind of come to accept that when it comes to Halo. But in this one, my God, is it ever gory? Um, there's a scene near the beginning of this where a group of teens basically gets blasted by Covenant weapons, and yeah, the plasma cannons just tear them apart. Guys get shot in the head, and all of a sudden, like they're basically everything from here up is gone. People getting sliced in half. Energy swords are brutally killing the civilians in this, and also too the UNSC weapons. Pack a punch too. We get to see Master Chief and Silver Team, as they call them, so Master Chief's team take pistols to Covenant's face and basically shred it apart. One of them gets hit by a sniper rifle, and yeah, his head's gone. You don't even see the pieces anymore of it. It's very grotesque, and like I said, I was a little taken back from it just because it's different from Halo, but I do feel like this is what these weapons would absolutely do. The plasma rounds from the Covenant weapons are tearing through concrete and vehicles and other things like that. And of course, the elites are strong. They're flipping over vehicles like it's nothing, like the Spartans are doing. Ripping chain guns out and firing them like it's nothing. Like that's what it was in the books and so of course the movies, and it looks good, it looks awesome. So this is when the action was definitely at its best. And even though I was taken back from it at first, I do think it works for what Halo is, because that definitely, especially the plasma weapons, would be doing this, and anything that can take down an elite shields 100% will be doing that. And I also found that I liked the idea of how the human weapons that weren't UNSC were no match against the elites. And it just basically showed how much the world truly does need the UNSC, even if it means they're losing their livelihood, they almost become slave workers, things like that. There's a lot of really good commentary that shows how absolutely terrible Halsey and the UNSC are. And it's commentary that was kind of in the games. A lot of it was in Reach, but they didn't go too much into. But they realize humanity knows that they have to kind of side with the UNSC because they are, just because of how advanced they are, the only way that they're going to stop this new alien threat. And yeah, like I said, the commentary on it is very, very good. I don't think it's too political or anything like that. Definitely nothing that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I do think it's very good commentary, and I'm excited to see more of that if we get more of it, because of course the village that we see in the beginning of the episode gets entirely wiped out, and there's only one survivor left. I don't mind this girl's character. Of course, I there are some annoying things she does, but she's young, she's angry with the UNSC, she just lost her whole family. For her to lash out, I don't think is any surprise, or anyone can really blame her for doing these things. There were a few things in the battle that kind of I thought was weird, where her dad thought that Master Chief was a more threat than the elites, the Covenant elites, who were tearing apart the people that he's lived with for years and years. Like he focused more on shooting at Chief than he did them. Little things like that, which I just found kind of weird. There was still like a lot of the resentments l- left over after they realized what the UNSC was there to do, which I thought was okay. But yeah, in terms of some of the human characters, we didn't get to spend a lot of time with a lot of them. They die in like the first 15 minutes almost. So I'm certain we're going to see more down the line of that civilian life, but half and half. I thought it was decent, and I don't mind the commentary that they're doing at all. When it comes to how the UNSC is portrayed from within their ranks, the Marines look awesome. The Spartans look awesome. I love the scenes of them suiting up in their gear and basically like checking their weapons. They're fast. They move just like you would expect them to move in live action. It's pretty spectacular to watch them move. But what kind of annoyed and upset me a little bit was that this Halsey is a pushover, and I just didn't find her intimidating at all. She based like in the games and the books, she bullied her way into making a program that steals children from their parents, erases their memories, provides cloning to make certain the parents never find out that they actually lost their kids, things like that. I didn't see any of that in her character. She's being, again, like bullied by her other higher ups, which never found or saw in any of the other ones. She's just not scary or ruthless enough yet, at least in the show. It is just kind of off putting to see a very, like I said, a pushover version of Halsey, and I hope we get to see a bit more of a ruthless version of her later down the line. They or at least they could be setting it up for her to take matters into her own hands a lot more, but it's yet to be seen. The visuals and the base of operations in the UNSC and High Charity are very, very cool, but let's talk a little bit about High Charity, where it's definitely a little weird seeing them have a human ambassador who I like what they're doing with the prophets so far, but this human ambassador that the covenants have just didn't sit right with me in the way that you can obviously tell she doesn't believe what she's there doing. We don't know much about her backstory, but yeah, she's reading old human texts and they think, oh, you're doing this to better understand the enemy. But it's very clear that it's not the reason to the viewer. And it's just I don't know how she's gotten this far because she just again speaks very softly and weakly, which seems like the opposite of what her character would need to be in the position that she's in as a human being. I find that if they did her someone like the Locust Queen from Gears of War or even Artemisia from the second 300 movie, really give her a reason to hate humanity and stick with that line, it would be a lot more compelling of a character and a story. And again, maybe they're going to go down that line, but just from what the brief glimpse that we saw of her, doesn't seem like they're doing that at all. And I just haven't liked what we've seen because, again, it just doesn't feel realistic or real to me. We don't see Cortana in this episode, but we do get to see a decent amount of Chief. And in all honesty, this does not feel like Master Chief to me. I find that the actor has like the mannerisms and the suit of Master Chief, but when he talks and how he talks just doesn't, and of course, too, just the things that he says does not feel like Master Chief to me whatsoever. I'm really happy that Halo Infinite brought back the Master Chief that really only says things that are absolutely badass, or like if they're funny, you're laughing because of how fucking cool it is. He only says things that are awesome and only talks when he needs to say things that are awesome. Like some of my favorite lines are giving the Covenant back their bomb. That pistol only has one round, and then Master Chief goes and says like it's enough. Like things like that are absolutely awesome. But there's one line in this that just oh my god, did I ever hate it. It was technically now the refugee girl that he has with him asks if there's anything to eat on the ship, and he says nuts, bolts, microchips. And of course she just deadpan stares at him. He's like, that was a joke. That's not Master Chief. That feels like something straight out of the MCU and one of their most corniest jokes ever. And I really did not like that joke. And especially too when it came to they do the face reveal in the first episode of this. I was surprised to see it so early on, and I was not looking forward to seeing it. But it honestly felt kind of racist in a way, if that makes sense. I just really didn't like how they did the face reveal of Master Chief, where she's basically has a gun to him and she's saying she doesn't trust him. She realizes that there's probably a kill order out on her and she's scared. And Master Chief, of course, that the reason why you don't see his face is because he could be anyone. He's supposed to represent humanity, and it's not like humanity has a face or anything like that. So I'm so fine not knowing ever what Master Chief looks like underneath the helmets, but they take it off in this, and really it's just a very generic looking white soldier. And as soon as he takes the helmet off and she's looking at him, it doesn't she basically puts all her hard feelings aside and all is good to go. And I just find like for someone who is like she's of Asian descent, that was what most of her village was, very, very diverse. To see again, space colonizers, a white guy just take off his helmets, like no scars, no nothing, just very generic looking white guy take off his face just didn't sit well with me for her to all of a sudden be like, okay, yeah, I trust you. You're humanity. It just didn't feel right at all to me. And for what Master Chief represents, and not realistic to the experience that she would have with the UNSC. And like I feel like he looks like what the UNSC would look like to the everyone who hates them. And again, I just it didn't sit well with me. I really don't like that they revealed his face. Um Again, just the way that he talks, everything is just it's not Master Chief to me. And for him to basically go on a tangent and like rebel against the UNSC this early on is really weird. And of course, too, Halsey not stepping in or basically bullying Master Chief as she did in all the other ones just feels really off and wrong to me. We'll see what they do in the later episodes of this, but I just really didn't like our first experience with this Master Chief. But yeah, just the way the story progressed, I'm kind of nervous to see what they're gonna do with it. And I feel like honestly, right now, with the way that they're going, it could feel very empty. I don't mind the Covenant storyline. It seems to be very good. They're looking for artifacts. Master Chief finds an artifact that basically lets him see memories of his family and to kind of take away the blockers that were put in his mind of his old life, his actual parents. He doesn't even know that it's his family at this point yet. He just feels a connection to them that he can't explain. And for him to go off on a crazy tangent like this after serving, well, how many years as a soldier just again feels very rushed to me right now. And I don't really like it at this point. There's just a lot of things that make me feel very, very nervous. And when it comes to the story, the characters, all of this, it does to me feel like they read a Wikipedia page and then went and made a TV series out of it. They've already said that they didn't play the games or really look into it or discuss it as they're writing this, and it very much shows. So for the fan of Halo like me, like a big fan, a huge fan of Halo, and it's just anyone who's even casual players, I don't think they're going to be intrigued or moved by the series at all. If you haven't played the Halo games, maybe like the show will be piquing your interest, but I still just find that it is a very generically written show at this point, and there isn't really anything special in this first episode to keep anyone around. So I will be watching all of it and do a season one review once it's done, but I feel like it might be a little hard for me to get into it and do so by the end of the series, depending on where they take it, because I was not impressed with this first episode in many, many of its regards. The majority of it, really. I find that the costume design is very, very fantastic. I'm excited to see what some of these other weapons do, like the Needler, how gory they can make that weapon, because it's absolutely terrifying. And again, there's things that I'm excited to see how they move forward. I'm not gonna really judge the whole series until I get the whole cake and not just this one slice of it, but I did not like this first episode of the Halo TV series, and I am very worried about where the show's gonna go. So I do have to give it a 5 out of 10. And I at this point I can't recommend it to anyone like me who's a fan of the games. Again, too, I just think it's very generic show at this point, and it's not really going to be on my recommend list for anyone. And I'll give updates episode per episode until the finale, where I'll do an actual review on my Instagram. Well, that's where I'm going to do like these little week by week updates until I can do another YouTube video about season one and talk about it. But yeah, I'm just a little worried about the show right now. But if you've seen the first episode of the Halo TV series, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. If you like this review, you can check out all my other reviews and everything I do on the channel through my playlist down below, and I'll link some up top here for convenience sake. Subscribe to the little ring around if you want to know when I upload new videos. If you want to check out everything I do Twitch wise and live stream wise, there's a link to that in the description of this video, and of course my channel bio. And at both of those places, you can find a link to the Media Mountain, which is my Discord. We talk about movies, video games, comic books, TV, pretty much everything that's awesome in this world. So you can definitely join that amazing community. Help make it even more amazing than it is already. And yeah, just awesome, guys.